want to take y'all back where it all started from.
Let me tell you about my city, a little town where I'm from, where everybody's southern raised, just as good as they come. Backwoods and Macioke and mud holes, and back then we only ate what the farm grow. Man, I miss some days how we played on them dirt roads, and out of towners came with respect, cause they know we all close. Yeah, southern pride, toting gun folks. Welcome to my city, I-75 South, just north of Live.
I'm from a city called Austin, Georgia, right on the border of Florida. I was raised on these dirt roads, mud tires, backwoods running around this small town living, yeah. Now welcome to my city, time of town, 229, turn it up so they can hear it loud. We get it up with big trucks and heavy G's, pretty girls with moonshine and whiskey.
It's nothing like our dirt roads, you can bet that, son. I'm from a city, by any means we gon' protect our guns. I hang with the rednecks and geekies, we get up in big trucks in the backwoods like Indians and teepees. This the home of the mighty, mighty Vikings, Wildcats, Blazing, Titletown license winners, pretty girls with country grammar. When I say about Austin, Georgia, I ain't talking about Atlanta. This a different type of city, where the woods are pretty, but get gritty, you hear me? What you know about that 229? You can find us on the Florida, Georgia line, where I reside.
I'm from a city called Austin, Georgia, right on the border of Florida. I was raised on these dirt roads, mud tires, backwoods when we ride this small town living, yeah. Now welcome to my city, time of town, 229, turn it up so they can hear it loud. We get it up with big trucks and heavy G's, pretty girls with moonshine and whiskey. Georgia, right on the border of Florida. I was raised on these dirt roads, mud tires, backwoods when we ride this small town living, yeah. Now welcome to my city, time of town, 229, turn it up so they can hear it loud. We get it up with big trucks and heavy G's, pretty girls with moonshine and whiskey.
It's Thursday night. Welcome to my city. Welcome to the 229. Turn it up so they can hear it loud. Are y'all excited that we're almost to the end of the week? I don't know what makes me more excited. We're getting close to the end of the week, or it's a Thursday night episode of the Viking Nation Live. It's running neck and neck. I got to be honest. It's running neck and neck. But you know what? This is one of the things that I look forward to every single week is getting to spend an hour or so with the best fans on the planet, and that's the Viking Nation. So, what I got here? What I got here? People sending me text already, trying to distract me. Don't you guys know I've got a live show to do? So why are you sending me text? You know who you are. Why are you sending me text right when I start my show? I don't understand it. I don't understand it. But anyway, guys, it's we got a great show for you tonight. We got Danny Redshaw, the athletics director for Lowndes County Schools, that's going to be calling in at about 7:15 in just a few minutes, and we're going to be talking about the state of the union, if you will. The state. No. Danny's not going to be giving a formal speech or anything like that, but he is going to be giving us an idea of, what's going on in Lowndes athletics, because it's been quite a while since we've heard from an athletic director at Lowndes High School that talks about the entire athletics program, and that's why I'm so excited, looking forward to having Danny on the program, just to get his thoughts on different topics going on at Lowndes High School and across the state as well. So, guys, you guys know the deal by now. Welcome to the Viking Nation Live. I am your host, Larry Godwin. You can call me LG. You see the initials in the background. The call-in number, if you would like to opine on the White Oak Investment Hotline. Actually, no, I got that backwards. It's the Migraine and Spine Clinic of Valdosta hotline. The number is right there on your screen. It's right under my name. It's 229-460-1205. And if you would like to drop us a comment on the White Oak Investment comment line, then you guys know how to do it. You guys know the deal there. So welcome to you guys, Greg Maddox, Georgia Coach Trainer. You guys, appreciate you tuning in each and every week. And let's go ahead and get on with the show. I want to go ahead and thank our sponsors before Danny calls in. And that is, of course, Pepsi of Valdosta. Let me go ahead and get this scroller off the screen so you can get the full effect there. Pepsi of Valdosta, they've got some fantastic products. Pepsi Mountain Dew, Rockstar Mountain Dew Energy, Mountain Dew Spark. They've got the new Pepsi Starry drink, the lemon and lime drink that is now available in all your retail outlets. So give it a shot if you haven't already. Thank you so much to Pepsi of Valdosta for being our title sponsor for the year. White Oak Investment, Kyle Conger does a fantastic. I was talking to Kyle earlier this week because, the market's going up and down, up and down. So every once in a while, just sheer luck, happenstance, we got hopefully a tax refund coming up this year. So I don't want to necessarily this is what I was telling him. I don't want to necessarily put my money in the market because I don't know what it's going to do, that kind of stuff. So let's kind of wait it out. But I don't really want to put it in a savings account because it's not going to do anything. So he gave me some really good advice that it's going to return about 4 to 5% until we figure out what the market's going to do. And then we can put that towards that effort. But that's the kind of advice that I get from Kyle at White Oak Investment. He's always talking me off the ledge, always giving me great advice. He can be your financial guy as well. If you have a need for that, give him a call at White Oak Investment. That's Kyle Conger, 229-850-8848. We also want to thank longtime friend of the show, and that is Tim Neesmith, affectionately known as Stickman. He's got an operation called A Shade of Perfection where he can make your house look beautiful from the outside, that is, by customizing your shades and blinds. If you have a need for that product or service in the upcoming future, give him a shout, 229-251-3479. You can also catch him at his website, ashadeofperfection.com. But the hits don't stop there. I mentioned earlier before, the Migraine and Spine Clinic of Valdosta, Josh Batson and Justin Haskin. They offer a variety of different types of migraine and back pain treatments. They are your certified headache medicine specialists. Thank you so much to, first of all, the friendship that I have with Josh and Justin. Even though they're Gator fans, they're okay. They're the upper crust of Gator fans, and that's why I love them so much. But more importantly for you guys, they have a great product and service. But a great company that offers a great service. They are your certified headache medicine specialist here in the Valdosta region, if you will. I want to thank my buddy Matthew Godwin at Verizon Wireless on Perimeter Road. I keep hearing, just about every single week, sometimes twice a week, you guys will call me up and say, listen, I went to see Matthew at Verizon Wireless on there on Perimeter Road. He did such a good job for me. Luke Bush, thank you so much for your patronage. With Matthew there at Verizon Wireless on Perimeter Road. Keep him coming, guys. He does a great job. And I'm not just saying that because I'm his dad. He does a fantastic job. I taught him the importance of good customer service. And that's one thing that I pride myself on. So he's carrying on the family name when it comes to providing great customer service. So if you have a need for iPhones, Androids, accessories, small business accounts, Matthew Godwin at Verizon Wireless on Perimeter Road can certainly help you out. We also want to thank one of our newest sponsors, and that's Chandler Kudik. He owns a company called AquaWorks Pool Company. You can reach him at 229-415-0752. Guys, pool season is here. It's literally right around the corner. I know we've got this cold snap, but the weather will warm up very, very quickly. If you have a pool, you need to go ahead and get it cleaned if you don't have it done already. And by the way, you probably need to have a regular professional. That sounded really weird. You need to have a professional regularly come out to clean your pool and keep it safe. And Chandler specializes in that. AquaWorks Pool Company. Give Chandler a call. Give him a shout. Oh, by the way, tomorrow is the last day of his March special. If you sign up in the month of March, then you get 1 month free. And tell him the Viking Nation sent you. We also want to thank another one of our newest sponsors, and that is Tony Green and Trey Hatcher at Imperial Auto Sales. You can reach them at imperialautosales.com. They have 2 fantastic locations to service your automotive needs, and that is on Bay Tree and on North Ashley Street. So let's go to the phone line. Hey, caller, welcome to the Viking Nation Live. What's on your mind?
Hey, Larry, it's Coach Redshaw. How are you?
Hey, man, how are you?
I'm good. I'm out early.
Well, just slightly. I'm finishing up my last sponsor, so just hang on, and I'll be right with you, okay?
All right, sounds good.
All right, guys, finally wrapping up our sponsorships, and I want to thank Steve Nichols with Freedom with Steve Nichols. You see his website on the screen, freedomnetworks.com. He's doing a lot of good things there in the morning. That is if you like to talk politics first thing in the morning. I understand. Some of you wake up first thing in the morning, and the last thing you want to talk about is get your blood boil with the talk of politics, but some of you like that kind of stuff. Because Steve calls me every once in a while, shares his ratings, his numbers that he gets behind the scenes, and a lot of you are tuning in the tune of thousands every month. So if that's your cup of tea, then tune in, freedomnetworks.com, every Monday through Friday, 6 to 8 a.m. Thank you so much to all of our sponsors, and thank you so much to the man of the hour, Coach Danny Redshaw. Danny, is it proper to call you the man of the hour?
Probably not.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you so much for taking time out on a Thursday evening, right before spring break, to give us a little tune-up. Kind of I don't want to call it something formal like a State of the Union address, but what is the state of Lowndes athletics right now?
Very good. In fact, I just got home, skipped out a little early to come talk to you from our basketball banquet where Coach Rashawn Benjamin and Coach Antonia Tooks were celebrating for both of them back-to-back region championships this year. So
absolutely,
that's what I was doing this evening. But spring sports are rolling. I mean, we can talk about it off.
Yeah. Well, let's get into some of it. You know, I had Coach Tooks and I actually had both basketball coaches on a few weeks ago, and just bragging about their I guess dual region championship. Didn't go quite as far in the playoffs as we'd hope, but you get a sense talking to not just the basketball coaches, but when I talk to other coaches, other programs out there just seems to be this sense of Lowndes is just building some momentum behind some of these athletic programs. And it just seems like they're on the cusp of making deep runs. We've seen the last couple of years, like the baseball program, for example, under Ryan Page, made a couple of deep runs. What do you attribute to that? Is it all coaching? Is it all student athletes, stellar student athletes, combination? What do you account for that?
It's a combination, and you stole my thunder because I was going to brag about both basketball programs and say that exact same thing. I mean, they are not far away from being able to compete with anybody in the state. I mean, they are close. They are getting there. And, it's obviously number one, and I've always said this, I think as coaches, and I know this was true with me, probably got too much credit when we were successful. And on the flip side, probably too much blame when we weren't, because, first and foremost, you got to have dedicated student athletes.
That's right.
But a lot of it is not with just Coach Benjamin and Coach Tooks, but all of our coaching head coaches and their staffs. We've got some good coaches, and I would just use basketball as an example because we just started that with them. I hope y'all can't hear my dogs barking in the background. They just, they both had a vision when they got here, and they're slowly building towards it. And I think all of our coaches have that same vision of, we don't, we want to build a good program. We want to put out good student athletes that we're proud to have part of a program. But, we want to compete in every sport at the highest level in the state. And I think they've all got that mindset. And, we've got a, great administration at the school. Obviously our Board of Education and our superintendent are behind us. So, it's just, and, we can, whenever you want to talk about facilities, we can talk about facilities.
Yeah.
But
Hey, before you get there, let me ask you something. I've asked this from other coaches in particular, but I've never asked this from an athletic director standpoint. I've been on other sports shows. This is one of the things that I've believed in years. When you take a look at programs at the high school level that have sustained winning at the highest levels, what I see is like 4 or 5 common things that those programs have in common. Obviously, you got to have good coaching. You got to have at least good coachable athletes. You've got to have community support, but I think a lot of programs, a lot of schools in the state miss this final part, and that's total all-in effort and backing behind the administration. How important is that at the administration level, is to be all in for your athletic programs?
I think it's huge. And, our principals, our principal and assistant principals, the folks at the county office, winning just, and I don't mean just wins and losses, but building a winning program.
Right.
That's a, and I'll call Lowndes County Schools a community. That's a community-wide effort. And it doesn't take just a bunch of good players or a great coach. It takes much more than that. The community support that we have in all sports, the faculty and staff at Lowndes High School and the 3 middle schools is unbelievable. I mean, it becomes a culture. It's a culture is what it is. And I'm going to try to move inside so you won't hear my dogs barking. But it really is a culture.
That's
and,
right.
When, that word, I think sometimes is overused or used in the wrong way. But, when that's just the thing we've tried to develop, and we talk about it all the time. Now, we don't advertise it. Your culture kind of speaks for itself, I believe. And, we know schools that they can't seem to win at anything. And, I don't think it's for a lack of trying or poor athletes. It's just a lot of times it's just the culture and the people that are there. And I'll use an example. I can look back at several of our successful baseball seasons.
Yeah.
When, man, we weren't any good.
I cannot believe any coach would ever admit that on air.
I mean, and I don't mean that in a bad way. And that is not a knock on any of those kids.
Right.
But compared to the folks we were running into in the playoffs and knocking out and advancing to the 3rd or 4th round, and I mean that in a positive way. With our kids expected to win.
Sure.
They didn't think that over there was better. They didn't care nothing about a 5-star pitcher who's throwing 93 miles an hour, or 3 future draft picks in their starting lineup. It didn't bother them at all, and a lot of times we were very successful, and we've done it in football and other sports as well. I'm speaking for baseball because I was the head coach there for such a long time, but our kids just expected to win. It was ingrained in them. It was the culture. And, they didn't think anything else. And I think that's kind of what, to answer your question, I think at the schools that consistently win in a bunch of different sports, that's the first thing you'll notice and feel when you walk on that campus is that culture.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about the culture for a second. When you say culture, is it from a community standpoint? Like, much has been made of the the image or the mascot, unofficial mascot, the Plowboys over the year. This blue collar company man type of man. Is that the culture you're talking about, or are you talking about something different?
No, I'm just talking about the culture, and because we've got kids from everywhere in the county.
Yep.
And from different socioeconomic backgrounds and everything else. I guess you could say that Plowboy just kind of represents, the way our culture is, but it's more of it is community wide, it's school wide, it starts at the elementary schools, and it's just a belief that not only athletically but academically and everything else, that those kids believe they're part of something special.
That's right.
And you get kids believing that, man, you can do anything.
Yeah, absolutely. Some of the Lowndes, when people say Lowndes High School or Lowndes Athletics, you naturally think of maybe football, baseball, basketball, the big sports, if you will. But man, it just seems like, I don't know if it's always been this way or if I'm just now noticing it, but it just seems like some of these other quote unquote smaller sports has really, really risen to prominence. Like Lowndes wrestling is on a great run. Lowndes golf, both boys and girls, is on a great run. Just and soccer program is up and coming. It's still a young program, but it's up and coming. Does that kind of lend itself to the culture you're talking about?
Oh, absolutely. And again, you mentioned, what everybody wants to call the big three.
Yeah.
Okay. When those three are successful year in and year out, I just feel like it permeates throughout the school community, throughout the building, and throughout the other sports. And to further your point, we won 14 region titles last year.
Wow.
Okay,
I did not realize that.
That's not going to happen this year. It's probably never going to happen again with any school in any region. In fact, we're neck and neck with Richmond Hill for the all sports trophy, which is points you get for first, second, third, and fourth and all the sports. But yeah, when the big three are successful and you've got your fall sports that are softball is always successful. Cross country, we're year in, year out. Coach Mazurkowitz is going to have those girls. I mean, I think they won before this year. They had won 7 or 8 straight region cross country titles. Track and field, I think they're double figures in back to back. Obviously, it's not back to back if it's 10 or 11 in a row region titles. We've started a gymnastics program. It's very successful. 2 new sports we added this year: competition dance. First year competing, they finished in top 8 in state in 7A. Flag football this year, first year competing, made the area playoffs. So there's and I could go on and on, but you're right. Our so-called, what everybody likes to refer to as minor sports, those kids playing golf and tennis, they don't think they're sports minor.
That's true. That's true.
They're playing to compete and win, and they represent us well. So yeah, it's everybody. It's all the sports, the fall sports, the winter sports, the spring sports. We're wide open. I've just watched the middle school conference track meet today at Lowndes all day, which we hosted, and we're going up against combined schools, and we're competing with 3 separate middle schools. And I think we won the girls. One of our middle schools, Pine Grove, did, and the boys finished second by just a couple of points. And that it just permeates downward. Success wise.
That's right.
Kids want to participate. They when they come to one of our middle schools, they want to participate in football. They want to play golf. They want to run track. They want to play softball. And our middle school sports are just growing like crazy. We're adding a couple more volleyball teams in the fall. We added a soccer team at each middle school this year, just because of the kids coming out and wanting to compete and wanting to play for Lowndes.
Right.
So it's it's just a big, it's just a big deal to me. And I think it's a big deal to our community. And that's why we're so successful.
I got you. Listen, when you took over Lowndes Athletics, it's not like you inherited a broken program. It's actually a pretty darn good program. But whenever there's a new chief, Danny, there's always maybe an emphasis from the new guy to either go in a different direction or maintain what you have. What's been your philosophy, and what kind of goals do you have in place for the athletics program?
Well, I did have a little practice. I was assistant athletic director for 8 years. So I had some time in it, and I had some experience. Now that obviously didn't prepare me for everything, because some things you just got to live through.
That's right.
But my main focus has been communication and relationships. With our coaches, with our students, with our faculty and staff, with our administration, with the folks over in the board office. And I think any successful thing, whether it's athletics, a business, or whatever, that's how it starts.
That's
and
right.
I'm a communicator, and I also want to believe that my coaches know that they can count on me to help them problem solve and provide them with the best possible things that they need to be successful. And that's really it. I mean, it's I didn't come in with any game changing great ideas or philosophies or anything. Just I'm going to be myself, and I just want our coaches to work hard to build good student athletes, and to represent us well. And I think that's important too when you talk about sportsmanship. It doesn't always work out that way, but we want folks to know, after we've whipped them and they're shaking our hands, dang, that was a nice team. But man, they're pretty good.
Yeah, I got to admit, you guys have always, for just about every program I've been around, you always emphasize good sportsmanship and the like. So let's talk about the future. If you've driven by any time over the last year and a half, you've noticed a lot of construction out there on campus. So you just recently upgraded some facilities, added some facilities. You maybe got something else. What's the facilities environment like at Lowndes High School right now?
If you've been on campus, they're second to none.
Absolutely.
to any high school athletic, facilities around. And yeah. I'm not just saying that. I mean, it's just the truth.
That's right.
And that all that, a lot of that was happening way before I became athletic director. I promise you.
That's right. It's been in the works for a few years now.
Yes. And, when we'll take a visual tour here on the phone. When you pull in, the first thing you see is our indoor facility, which we've been in already. Practiced in it the other day when we had the rain.
Yeah.
I think after the afternoon. Football's been doing their conditioning and stuff in there in the mornings. Everybody's going to get to use that thing that needs it. That's associated with Lowndes High School. Brand new tennis complex, 10 courts. It's beautiful. I don't know if you've been out there and seen it or not, but it is. They redid the entire tennis thing, and it's right there between the indoor facility and the softball field, with softball and baseball. Each were turfed in the past year. Their locker room facilities are second to none.
Right.
The hitting facilities, and you move on a little farther south. We are superintendent is making plans now and doing research on building a brand new state-of-the-art track complex, which would enable those regional and state meets.
Wow.
Possibly a turf field out there inside the track, with and that track obviously would have a big time surface. We just re-turfed the stadium. It was due for it.
That's right.
It was due. It'd been, gosh, somebody asked me and I couldn't remember the exact year, but it's been 12 or 13 years since that stuff was put in, and it's real, it looks beautiful.
Dan, before you move on, let me ask you about that turf. It just seems like, because we've had several pictures of the new turf at the stadium on our show, and am I imagining, or did the shade of because it seems like the last turf, it was more heading in the direction of like a cardinal red, but this new turf seems to be more of a move back towards a crimson type of color. Am I imagining that?
No, I mean, we're trying to get, yeah, I could talk about uniform colors.
That's
and
right.
Color. When people say, well, they're red. Okay. Well, is it Georgia red? Is it crimson?
Right.
Is it burgundy? Is it wine? Is it? I could go on, and it's hard to match colors. When you talk about ordering uniforms and this, that, and other,
Right.
that's a 30-minute discussion by itself.
That's
but,
right.
yeah, we're trying to get the colors. Our alma mater says we're crimson and white, and we've been singing it now for over 50 years.
That's right.
That's what we need to go with, and we're trying to get everything matched up with that.
I got you. Hey, Wilbur Pelfrey's got a question for you. He said, ask the coach about the new field house. Is that still a reality? Is that still coming?
Yes, it's in the plans. We've got to, we're actually, there's some plans to possibly build a, right next to the, when that thing gets torn down, okay, you've torn down everything. You've torn down locker rooms.
Yep.
Coaches' offices, meeting areas, weight room, the whole deal. Okay. So let's say you rebuild that whole thing, and when it's during the construction phase, which is liable to take a year and a half, 2 years, all those things I just mentioned, you got to have somewhere for all your athletes to lift weights.
That's good.
You've got to have somewhere for your football program to live out of, for coaches, players, locker rooms, equipment room, training room, because all that, if this thing becomes a reality, all that's coming down. So, we're in the stages of trying to figure out, how we're going to, adjust to that during that time. There's talk about a weight room and a storage room up next to the indoor, which can, help house football and our other athletes as far as lifting weights when the new facility is being built. And if that becomes a reality, and then you get the new stuff built, well, now you've got a chance to now you've got another weight room on campus to service everybody. PE classes, we've got kids who are not athletes, enjoy lifting weights, and
Absolutely.
we have those. This just gives us more options. So what you're talking about, the new football field house, is not happening tomorrow, but they are still planning for it.
I got you. Okay. Well, guys, if you're just now joining us, on the phone with us is Lowndes Athletic Director for Lowndes County Schools, Coach Danny Redshaw. He's graced us with his call-in appearance tonight, so we appreciate him joining us the program on the Viking Nation Live. Thank you so much for tuning in, guys. Coach, we've got another question for you. Now, this is kind of a off-the-wall question, and I have to take the blame for this one because a couple months ago, I was clowning around kind of during the Christmas break. It was a dead time, had a couple of weeks of vacation, didn't have anything to do, Danny. So I started playing with Photoshop and started coming up with different helmet schemes and colors just for fun. And so when the next time I had a show, I put one of those photos up on the screen and everybody went nuts over it, that kind of stuff. So this is why I'm asking you this question. One of the viewers remembers that show we were just having a good time with. So long premise to the question, any plans on maybe going back to a silver helmet or a white helmet, any football uniform changes that are on the drawing board?
What did Denzel Washington say? And remember the Titans, you're overcooking my grits. But yeah, there has been some talk. We've you've got a lot of tradition in Lowndes football. You've got the Plowboy, and you've got everything else. And when I came to Lowndes, and for years, we wore the silver helmets.
That's right.
And there, I would just throw this out there. There has been some talk, and this is all I'm going to say. There has been about a second helmet.
So what you're saying is to borrow a line from Jim Carrey in that movie Dumb and Dumber. So you're saying there's a chance.
That's a good line. It sure is.
We'll just leave it at that. We'll just leave it to the viewers' imaginations there. So don't want to spoil any type of surprise that may or may not happen in the near future. Hey, Tim Neesmith says, "Hey, Redshaw."
Yeah, tell him. Okay, while you got Tim Neesmith's attention, tell him I'm tired of carrying this piece of turf that he wanted from the old field in the back of my truck. It's been there for 2 months.
All right, Stickman. You heard the man. He says, either come pick up your turf. This is me paraphrasing. Either come pick up your turf, or the next stop is the landfill.
There you go. I couldn't have said it better myself.
Well, good stuff. Good stuff. All right. So before you go, I got a couple of kind of hot topics that applies to the GHSA wide. There's some issues that the Georgia High School Association is having to deal with, and I want to ask you because I don't want to say this, in a boastful way, but this is Lowndes High School. It's one of the largest premier schools in the state. So I would imagine the opinion of the athletic director from Lowndes County Schools probably carries at least a little bit of weight. So I'm just curious to get your thoughts on a couple of different topics. What are your thoughts on implementing instant replay at the state championship games for football?
I was actually at the state athletic directors conference this weekend,
okay.
And I are region representative on the executive council with the GHSA. And there's not been any formal talks that I'm aware of. I don't think it's on the agenda in April. My thing is, if we're going to do it at the state championships, then it needs to be done the whole year.
Yeah, okay.
To me, it'd be like telling guys in baseball, when they get to the state championship, they have to use wooden bats when they can hit with composite bats all year. If you're going to do it, and it's going to be impossible for a lot of these schools,
right.
With the technology and just the cost of it. But if you're going to do it, and this is the only opinion I have on it, if you're going to do it, it needs to be done throughout the regular season and playoffs, not just for the state championship.
I got you. Well, that's a big feat too, because you got 400 plus schools statewide, probably, and so that'd be a tough feat to try to put in place. I remember when we implemented the play clock. It was tough for some of the smaller schools. It
was, and we just this year in basketball started using it.
Yep.
First year we used the shot clock in basketball. Some teams experimented with it last year, but it was fully required this year throughout the state, and it works out fine. Of course, now the shot clock cost is probably going to be a little bit less.
That's right.
Than what to have a replay technology put in at every school.
That's right. Listen, if we could pull it off where they implement it all season long statewide, I'm all for that as well. I just, personally, I just don't want to see what we saw in the last, not the last couple, but last year we had a prominent situation where it just seemed like the wrong call was made, and obviously replay would have obviously corrected the situation.
Sure.
But the opinions may differ here and there on that, but I just want to avoid those types of situations. It just seems like to me that replay is the obvious way to handle that.
Yeah, and I do not disagree with that. And I don't know how touchy of a subject it is for the GHSA or all parties involved. I know if and I'm referring to the call you were talking about last year at the state championships. If I was the coach or the AD on the wrong end of that deal, obviously I would want it. Because at the end of the day, and that's when it's just like arguing with an umpire.
That's right.
Okay, just get the call right. Okay, let's get the call right. Whether you get embarrassed because you missed a call when nobody cares about that. Get the call right, because at the end of the day, that's the job that you have.
Listen, I have a perfect solution. You know how Larry's solutions sometimes are way, way out there. So I have the perfect solution. So when that particular play happened, since it's a state replay, since it's a state championship game, you got it in a stadium where it's Georgia State or this upcoming season moving back to Mercedes-Benz, you got the benefit of a big jumbotron right there in the stadium. I think that the officials should have come together, huddled, and the white hat take a kind of unofficial sneak peek at the jumbotron, and then made the call from there. What do you think about that?
Unofficial sneak peek.
And that's an unofficial nudge, nudge, wink, wink, sneak peek.
Yeah. The problem there is if you're the guy on the other side, whether the call is right or wrong.
I didn't say it was a well thought out solution.
I don't know. Officiating. I think I've got a little bit of reputation for arguing with umpires and stuff back in my. But that's a tough job.
Sure.
And those guys, most of them in it because they love the game. But we have a true, and I'm gonna plug something GHSA talked about this weekend at the State Athletic Directors Conference. We have a serious problem in getting officials.
Yeah.
Officiate in all sports at all levels. I mean, it is a problem. And, we've already gone to, y'all seen it, because it affects not just teams, but affects fans and everybody else,
That's
right.
Right.
Where we're not, the 1A, 3A, 5A, and 7A on one day playoffs and, 2, 4, and 6 on the other day. This has happened, not just football. I know we've got a bunch of football fans listening to you, but this has happened in other sports.
Yeah,
too now.
absolutely.
With umpires, basketball, soccer. It's hard to find soccer officials in South Georgia. And we have a serious problem with that. And I'm going to tell you now, the biggest reason that we have an officiating problem because of and this is scientific studies done by the GHSA and the NFHSA, the National Federation, is fan abuse.
Whew. Man,
people they don't want to put up with it.
Preach it,
I mean, and people say, well, we and as an athletic director, we pay a lot of money for officials' fees. But that being said, that just because we pay those guys, $120 to officiate a football game, doesn't give everybody the right to verbally abuse those guys. And it's a major problem throughout the country now.
Yeah,
and
absolutely, Danny. Not many people know this about me, but I was a football and soccer official many moons ago. At the high school level. Well, not soccer, but for football at the high school level. And so I was a official I started out on a clock like a lot of new officials do.
Sure.
And you kind of get insulated from the crowd, especially at bigger stadiums that the press box is kind of walled off. So you can't hear as well. But man, it was an eye-opening experience. The first year I set foot on that field, I was a line judge. Oh my God.
Yeah.
The abuse that you take, you expect it from the sidelines, the coaches, he's going to be chewing in your ear. You're coached up from the white hats and the other officials. They're preparing you. But what I was not prepared for was, like you said, the fan abuse that was just nonstop the entire. We did a playoff game one time over in Pelham. And, because of circumstance situations, the home team ended up losing that game, but they scored a couple of times at the end of the game. And the touchdown was called back a couple of times due to penalties, and they were legit penalties. Man, we had to have a sheriff's deputy escort out of the county that night because the verbal abuse was so bad.
Yeah. And it's brutal. I mean, and we really do. I'm not being overly dramatic here. We have an officiating crisis. We can't get people to officiate for that reason. And, that's my job on Friday night, get officials to their locker rooms, get them on the field, off the field. And there's been once or twice, I had to make sure they got out of there safely. But, that was an emphasis. It's been an emphasis with the GHSA, but we get emails all the time, encouraging people to come out and officiate. And I'm like you, back when I was in college now, I did basketball, I umpired baseball, I did football. I started out with, like you, in football, running the clock, moved my way down to side judge and all that. And it's tough, of course. I had a gift where a lot of times, and it helped me when I was coaching, I didn't hear things, but, if somebody's right in your ear, verbally abusing you, you can't help it. And it's, that's not worth any kind of money now.
Man,
especially
you're not kidding. I did a JV game one time up in Berrien County. It was Berrien against Clinch County. It was on a Thursday afternoon. And, midway through the third quarter, I mean, the teams had been jawing back and forth the entire game, and we tried our best as an officiating crew to kind of stamp it out, try to nip it in the bud, but it just seemed to get worse and worse. And then it carried over to the sidelines, and the coaches were going back and forth. And then before we knew it, midway through the third quarter, we had fans jumping onto the field, and there was an all-out brawl. We had to call law enforcement in. We had to cancel the game. Everybody one of our officials got decked. It was crazy.
And you know what? We're talking high school athletics.
That's right. We were talking a 10th grade football game, man.
Yeah. And it doesn't matter if you're talking the Super Bowl, which, they had some people call it a questionable call at the end, but it was a legitimate penalty.
Yeah.
I mean, from what I saw, okay, well, you don't call that in the last 30 seconds. Well, what? So you can only call it at certain times. You got to make the call. If there's a penalty, you make the call. And, I just think the culture on TV and social media does not help with fan behavior, because, and I see on my sports apps all the time, especially ESPN, because they've got the NBA, and I'm not a big ESPN fan. Don't get me wrong. But I always scroll by them because I'm usually looking for baseball and football news and things like that. But, there's always headlines, and it's like they're promoting it.
That's right.
Okay. Here's Johnson and Smith jawing at each other.
Right.
And I mean, two guys playing. We're glorifying it. Okay. So if it's okay for the players to do it to each other and do it to the referees, okay. The majority of us are neither players or referees. We're fans. Okay. So that gives them the green light. Well, they can do the same thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I mean, it's a major problem.
Obviously, it's a major problem. And obviously, we can't solve all the problems outside of our community. But in the Lowndes County community, when we have visiting programs come to our place, then we should go out of our way to show good hospitality, get upset, whatever, do what fans do, but, keep it within reason.
Yeah. And let's be honest, we're all in the same boat, whether it's
exactly right.
We've all got fans that we're not proud of.
Yeah. Absolutely.
That happens.
Absolutely.
And, you got to remember what we're doing here. I mean, I coached, I made my living, winning ball games. And that was the priority. But at the same time, at the end of the day, it's just a game.
Absolutely. Hey, listen, final question I've got for you. One of our viewers wanted me to ask you this. So what's your take on a hot button topic that's happening at the high school level? Now, I can't believe it's being discussed at the high school level, but it's here, it's in our backyard, and we have to deal with it. And that's the topic of NIL at the high school level. What are your thoughts on that? And what's the GHSA talking about to address that?
That was actually brought up. That's was the topic this weekend at the State Athletic Directors Conference from the GHSA from Dr. Hines. And there's nothing on the table at this point, but it's coming. And I'm not sure exactly how it's going to work. You still, when you talk about NILs and you think of college and you think, well, this guy left Georgia Tech to go to South Carolina because he entered the transfer portal because, he was offered a $500,000 NIL.
Right.
Okay. When it comes to high school and the GHSA, especially Georgia high school, which is not like the Florida High School Athletic Association, which is the wild, wild west.
That's right.
Comes to transferring, and I'm sure you've talked about that on your radio show.
Oh man, at nauseam. That they basically have no transfer rule. You just go wherever you want to go.
It literally is the wild, wild west. Okay, with Georgia high school is, from everything I've seen, that is never going to happen with the Georgia High School Association. If it does, hopefully I'll be long gone and retired and sit on my back porch by then.
Yep.
But that being said, it is coming, and rules are still going to have to be followed. If a kid leaves Marietta and comes to Lowndes County because he signed a $10,000 NIL deal, okay, that's tampering, that's illegal, that's undue influence.
Ooh, okay.
And that kid's going to be ineligible. And that's the Reader's Digest version of it right there.
Gotcha. Okay. So you're saying if they transfer down specifically for a payment, an NIL deal, if you will, that's considered undue influence and tampering. Now,
100%.
Yeah. On the flip side, I would think that, anybody in their right mind may decide to transfer, but they're not going to publicize the reason why they're transferred. So how would the GHA kind of prove that took place?
Great question. And I chuckle because I think of so many different scenarios of even in South Georgia of kids being recruited and, things being done the wrong way.
Yep.
But I don't know what their protocol there would be. But it's liable to get messy before they come up with a way to solve the problem. And here's my thing about the NILs. Here's what I think, and this is my opinion. 99% of your NILs. Okay, let's just take Ja'Curry Brown. Let's say we had, and he was a 4-star recruit. He's at Miami. Everybody knows Ja'Curry.
Yeah.
Down at Miami. I see the majority of if and when high school NILs happen in the state of Georgia, with let me just throw out one of my favorite restaurants, Mom and Dad.
Okay.
Great Italian restaurant. I don't even know if they support y'all, but I like to eat there. My wife loves to eat there.
Chicken marsala is my favorite item on the menu.
Yeah, I don't know if I could pick a favorite, but the black and grouper's pretty good too. And the black and white cheesecake, it don't get any better. No, it does not. That being said, I see really 98, 99% of NILs being where a kid like Ja'Curry Brown, who's already here, local kid, big time recruit, going to play D1 football on Saturdays in the ACC or the SEC or the Big Ten, him getting a $500,000 deal to, for them to put his face on a billboard or something.
Gotcha. Okay.
That's what I foresee for the majority of it. Now you're going to have the problems are going to be with your special guys, your once in a generation guys like Travis Hunter up at Collins Hill. Okay. Kid like that's going to be for sale.
Yep. Which
is not fair to the kid or high school athletics. And to me, that's the problem they're going to have to solve, not the local small NIL deals.
Yeah. Do you foresee
it's coming? I don't know in what form, but it is coming.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a can of worms that's just begging to be solved in the courts. And here's what I'm talking about. I can see situations where, you might have a local kid, whether it's in Metro Atlanta or down here, wherever, that gets a, pretty substantial, I think we might have lost Danny. Danny, you still there? Danny might have lost his connection there. So, the final question I was going to ask him anyway is, what happens when you have a local kid that gets like a major deal anyway, that kind of stuff. And so obviously you're going to have to pay taxes on that kind of stuff. Here's Danny right here. Hey, Danny, is that you? Oh, we lost him again. Let me see if I can call him. It's trying to call him. So the question I had was, what happens when that kid gets paid a handsome wage, a salary, if you will, to promote that business? Obviously, taxes are going to have to be paid. And what, a lot of these kids have no idea how to handle taxes like that. Maybe they come from, not a very affluent family, maybe on the lower end of the socioeconomic ladder that's not used to, these types of deals, and where they're not used to filing the tax returns for big deals like this. And they failed to do it because they didn't realize that it had to be done. You know what? Danny's calling my phone. Let me switch phones here. I've never done this live. Let's see if it works. Hey, Danny, is that you?
Yeah, I don't know what happened.
I don't know, man. The other phone started wigging out. So I've got you on my cell phone, plugged it up to the mixer. So perfect solution. Hey, last question I had for you. Appreciate you calling back. Is these I was explaining to the audience, these NIL deals could go sideways in a hurry. So I could envision a situation where, you got a kid that gets a pretty sizable deal. Maybe they're from a family that's lower on the socioeconomic scale, not used to any substantial sum of money, so they don't really file tax returns for a large sum, that kind of stuff. So obviously we're talking about IRS stuff here, so taxes have to be paid. Let's say the family neglects to pay taxes. Now the IRS is knocking on the school's door asking, hey, what are you guys doing to help this kid pay his tax? Do you foresee a situation, kind of a sticky situation like that happening in the future?
There's all kinds of scenarios you can come up with, and when you talk about NILs at the high school level, and again, I've got to learn more about it, but, NILs are from private entities.
That's right.
They would not be from Lowndes High School. They would not be from, in anything to do with that, the education thing. That's, if you think back to the kids from Florida who walked out because they took back his $13 million NIL, by the way the system's written at the college level, okay, University of Florida had zero to do with that.
That's right.
And said, the same thing would be at the high school level. I don't see how you could hold the school system or the University of Florida, going back to that the quarterbacks deal, whose name escapes me right now. But yeah, I don't think you can hold, say that situation happened at Lowndes High School or Valdosta High. You couldn't hold that high school or that Board of Education accountable, because at the end of the day, they had nothing to do with it.
Sure. Yeah, I see what you're saying. As long as the school system has this arm's length type of deal where they don't get involved with structuring the deal or anything. You're right.
That's the gray area of this whole NIL thing. Yeah. Joe's Body Shop is paying Larry Godwin to come to Lowndes High School and play football. Okay. But, that deal's between Larry Godwin and Joe's Body Shop. It's got nothing to do with the high school.
That's right.
Just like the quarterback at Florida, it had nothing to do with the university or their athletic association. So
that's right.
It's there's a lot of questions to be answered there.
That's right. And for that very reason, I hope the GHSA has the wisdom to make a rule that prohibits booster clubs from getting involved, just to avoid some of those gray areas that could hold school systems liable.
And that's true. Okay. And let's just say the owner of Joe's Body Shop, okay, is president of, Euphoria High, touchdown club.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great description.
There you go. Okay. So what does he to do the NIL? Because, I've read things, and I'm a Georgia fan.
Yeah.
Okay. But, you don't have, from what I understand, and you have to do some research and find out who's paying their NILs. I don't know if it's public record or not, but you're not going to find any guys sitting at the top of the Bulldog Booster Club who are paying out NIL.
That's right.
These are guys that are, the guys who, the anonymous donor who gives $5 million for stadium renovations. Okay. Unless you search far and wide, you're never going to find out who that dude is. I think that's the same thing with the NILs.
Gotcha. Well, it's new uncharted territory that the high school level is about to undergo. And it's going to be, man, I hope we don't end up regretting this. I don't see any way you can legally stop it, because it's basically a kid trying to earn some money for his family.
That's right.
But yeah, man, we got to tread lightly on this stuff. That's for sure.
Yeah. And I don't know, we get farther and we get, I'm an old school dude.
That's right.
And, I just always believed in, whatever sport it was. Okay. And I love small town football, and, the rest of the sports for that matter. But I just always believed, that, you coach the kids you got, you build them up in your program, you teach them what you want, from the 7th grade, 6th grade on up. And those are your kids. And that's what you got. But, unfortunately, it's not like that anymore.
Absolutely.
And to me, that's where high school sports has lost a lot of its luster.
Gotcha.
It's becoming more of a business, and less of it being about the boys and girls.
Absolutely. So listen, Danny, you've been very generous with your time tonight. Almost an hour, man. I'm very impressed. Very impressed. One thing for sure, you can talk. That's for sure. And that's a good thing. So,
well, I'm not quite as quiet as Randy McPherson.
I wasn't going to say it. Listen, I had Randy on the show one time, and I reached out to Marty Rogers, the head of the Viking Voice radio broadcast team, to come on to the show just for that show that night. And I turned over the interview duties of Randy to Marty, just because Marty and Danny had already built this rapport, and it went well. But I know what you're talking about. Randy, great coach, legend there at Lowndes High School, but addressing the media wasn't his forte. So I got to give you props, man. Your first time on the show, you did a great job.
And I'll say one thing about Randy too. Now, Randy wanted all the media And I told him this one time. I told him, I said, "You're not fooling me." I said, "You can fool all these other people." I said, "You're not fooling me." I said, "I know you want them people to think you're just a dumb old slow backcountry kid," which he is not. But he had no problem with everybody thinking that. That didn't bother him one bit.
Listen, he opened my eyes one night. I was at a Touchdown Club meeting, and it was when it was back in the media center on the high school campus. And he opened it up at the meeting, at the end of the meeting, for questions. And I asked him a question once about, it was after the Calker game. They beat us pretty bad, running basically a read option up the middle. Well, I mean, everybody's used to the read option on the ends, but they had a little wrinkle that night. They were running a read option off the guard.
Yes.
That night, and they just burnt us all night long. And so I asked him a question. I said, "Coach, the option football has been around for a while, but why does this read option work so well, especially now at the high school level?" And he gave me a 15-minute in-depth, behind the scenes, inside football kind of coach speak, and what coaches think about and why he thinks it works. It was a brilliant breakdown of that particular play. And so that opened my eyes. To speak to your point, the guy was a very sharp tactician when it came to X's and O's.
And he didn't care if all y'all thought he was dumb or not.
That's exactly right. That gave him an excuse not to do very many interviews.
There you go.
So, hey, listen, man, let's have you back on the show, maybe into the season next year when football rolls around. Hey, you're doing a great job with the Lowndes athletic programs up there. Well done. And thanks so much for being generous with your time tonight.
I appreciate you having me. Thank you.
Thanks, man. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
There he is, man. The one and only, one of the legends of Lowndes County athletics. Danny Redshaw, been around for a long time. And so now he's at the helm of Lowndes athletics, and we appreciate him coming onto the program. Man, we went almost an hour talking to Coach Redshaw about the different things that's happening within the Lowndes athletic program and the issues facing the state. He laid it out very, very clear. It's being talked about at the state level. Some of these issues, man, I don't know how we're going to address them. I don't know the rules that's going to eventually make it down to the school level, but you see some of the issues that these school systems are facing with not just NIL, but instant replay, officials shortage across the landscape for all sports. And now this NIL stuff is a legal minefield just waiting to blow up some program out there. So it's going to be, just to use the word interesting is an understatement. It's going to be interesting to see what happens in the near future when it comes to NIL, because that, guys, I'm telling you, that is a game changer. There are going to be some booster clubs out there. There are going to be some programs out there that get very, very creative, no matter what the rules that the GHSA finally adopts. There are going to be some creative license being taken place at the local level to take advantage of NIL. So we're going to see what happens. Listen, we're approaching the end of our program. And as you saw last week, I rolled out my Stetson, Don Imus, Larry Imus segment with my cowboy hat. I think I'm going to make this a regular segment now. So here is I don't know what I'm going to call this segment yet. I don't know if it's the cowboy hat segment or the Larry Imus segment or whatever, but during this segment every week, I'm going to highlight something, some interesting stuff that's happening. One of the most interesting things that happened in the world of high school football, I think it was announced today, or at least the news leaked today, that one of your favorite high school coaches of all time, Rush Probst, he's back in the news. A few weeks ago, he announced that he was going to work for a small private Christian school up in North Alabama called Coosa Christian. And, I actually interviewed him as part of my national high school football website and podcast, where Joe Mamone, he's the head of Prep Gridiron Logistics. He and I interview prominent high school football head coaches all throughout the country. And so we had Rush on that podcast a couple of weeks ago. You can catch that on our YouTube channel at Pregame Blitz. You can catch that interview. We talked to him for close to an hour. And that's when we talked about in detail his plans for what he was going to do at Coosa Christian Academy. But apparently those plans have changed now, because now he is going to be the new head football coach for Pell City High School, I believe, in Pell City, Alabama. So there you go. So Rush is back in the big time of high school football. Pell City, I believe, is a 6A program. And Alabama, they go up through the 7A level, just like Georgia. So 6A is just one step below the highest classification. So it's going to be interesting. Love him or hate him, the guy knows what he's doing on a football field. So it's going to be interesting to see if he can take over yet another program and lead them to prominence at one of the highest levels in high school football, and this back in his home state of Alabama. So that is my Larry Imus in the evening on the Viking Nation Live segment. So I don't know what you guys think, but it's my show and I'm going to do it. So anyway, what do you guys think of my hat? You'll have to go back to last week's show to get my explanation of what. So I got this hat at a national sales meeting several weeks ago, when everybody in the company was fitted for this custom cowboy hat, because we were in Texas, Austin, Texas. And so that's what they wear out there, I suppose. So anyway, I got fitted for this hat. I love it. And there's no ever occasion for me to wear it locally. So I'm going to start wearing it on this Larry Imus segment. Maybe I shouldn't call it Larry Imus, because that might be a copyrighted trademark deal with Don Imus with Imus in the Morning, if you're familiar with that radio show. And I thank Jason Anderson, the one and only Jason Anderson, for pointing that out, that it kind of looks like Don Imus's hat. So I'm in the process of naming this segment right now. But anyway, Greg Maddox, he's got a good idea. He says, you need a straw plowboy hat. I'm not exactly sure what a straw plowboy hat looks like, Greg, to be honest with you. I grew up a Berrien Rebel. I can tell you what a Rebel helmet looks like, but I'm not sure what a plowboy straw hat looks like. Is it something like a regular straw hat? With the straw obviously flapping out the sides. You got to help me out, guys. You got to help me out with my adopted school system, the Lowndes County school system. So anyway, so that's happening. A couple of other things. Greg says yes. A couple of other things that's happening in the world of athletics when it comes to Georgia is Score Atlanta, another media organization up in the metro Atlanta, has recently announced that they are going to begin in this upcoming off season. They're announcing a new event similar to SEC football media days. Now, if you're from South Georgia, we've had this stuff for a while now. We've had football media days down here for years now, right? All across South Georgia. So it looks like they're about to kick that off in the metro Atlanta area. They're claiming that this is going to be available to all coaches statewide. So we'll have to see how that develops. But anyway, high school football media days is coming to the metro ATL. Other things that are happening, just some, not very big news, but it is news statewide, and that is the GHSA has renewed the contract of current executive director Robin Hines. I got to admit, I think this was a good call, because Robin Hines took over an organization that had some problems, that had some issues to deal with. He has straightened those out, and he's got the organization headed in the right direction. That's for sure. Haven't agreed with him 100%. But listen, those are minor things that I disagreed with, some of the ways the organization has handled some things. But overall, for the most part, Robin Hines has done a fabulous job with the GHSA. And so, it's probably a good idea for them to renew his contract. And that run through, he's going to be executive director at least through May 31st, 2026. So he basically got a 3-year deal out of this. So that also probably recognizes some stability that the organization needs moving forward, especially with some of these hot button topics that Danny and I talked about a while ago, right? Instant replay, officials shortage, the NIL stuff. So all that's got to be taken care of and dealt with by the executive director and the organization as a whole. And it makes sense to have someone like Robin Hines at the helm to make sure all that stuff happens smoothly. Last thing is we are in an official countdown to spring football practice. So I'm happy to report there's 1 month and 4 days or 5 weeks or 840 hours until spring football begins for Lowndes football, and that's on May the 4th. So May the 4th be with Lowndes football. So finally, guys, we'll talk about more of this next week because next week is probably going to be a lighter show as far as guests goes because it's spring break for a lot of school systems in this area, including Lowndes. So it'll be us basically by ourselves, probably without a guest, and we're going to be talking about this topic. So be thinking about this. Spring football, what are your expectations heading into this? I know typically you're probably going to say, hey, I want to see us throw the ball more, that kind of stuff. I'm talking about behind that. Let's be honest about it. Lowndes football had some major problems at the end of last season. I'm not going to put that squarely on the former head coach's shoulders. I'm not going to put it on the player shoulders, but overall, in general, I think we can all agree that we had some issues. We had some issues that needed to be addressed. So now we have a new regime. So beyond the X's and O's, beyond the passing the ball more, what are your expectations heading into this spring football season? You want to see more cohesiveness? Do you want to see a return to quote unquote traditional, what Danny talked about is a true culture that of the football program that matches the culture of the Lowndes athletics program in general? So George, Coach Trainer, man, you have got a great memory. Trainer says, he reminds me, last spring break, you did the show from your vehicle in Florida. You are exactly right. That's my dedication to spending Thursday nights with you guys. I was on vacation last year, and I did not want to cancel the show. I did not want to do anything like that. So I found a hotspot and did the show remotely on my iPad. I remember that, Trader. So that's how important the Viking Nation is to me. That's how important you and our community are to me as well. So keep that in mind because I probably do have an announcement to make as far as the community goes in a few months. I'm going to throw that teaser out there. I can't let the cat out of the bag yet, but it may surprise some of you. So anyway, so keep that in mind. Brian Spray talks about throwing the ball more, and his expectations are winning. Let's return to winning. Yeah, 6-5 season. It's just not going to cut it. It's just not going to cut it. From when we're talking about one of the premier programs in the state of Georgia, 6-5 is just not going to cut. So, Brian, I completely agree with you, man. You got to return to winning. You got to. So with that said, I'm anxiously awaiting the release of the football schedule. That should be happening at any time now. And I'm really kind of surprised it hasn't happened yet. So I'll reach out, if I remember tomorrow, I'll reach out to some of my contacts within the football program, vis-a-vis the head coach. I'll just call Adam Carter tomorrow and ask him, what's up with the schedule? When do you expect to release that? So that should be happening at any time now, really. Wilbur Pelfrey, I mean, man, you bringing it, dude, with this statement. A more physical, disciplined, and strong program. So, Wilbur, next week's show, we're going to explore those topics. And because every program wants a physical, disciplined, and strong program. So what does that mean specifically for Lowndes football? So what do we want to see? We want to return back to one of the things that Randy McPherson was known for is very physical teams, right? Very, very physical teams. Travis Hart says, call Redshaw back and ask about the schedule. You know what? That's a good, I'm going to send him a text right now. Ask him. So y'all bear with me real fast. Let's see. Forgot to ask you, when will the schedule be released. Okay, so hopefully he's not, feeding his dogs, and he'll have his phone. He'll notice that before we get off the air tonight. So hopefully, great idea, Travis Hart. So it took you. So this is what happens when we work together. Right? This is what community involvement is all about. Wilbur Pelfrey says, I love it. Wilbur, I love you, man. The way you put things. Wilbur says, it's called hitting them in the face. You're talking about smash mouth football, a return to smash mouth football. What I was saying a while ago was, in the Randy McPherson era, whether you love the wing tee or the defense that he ran, whatever, one thing that you could always expect from a Randy McPherson program is a very, very physical and violent football team. Can we agree on that? I mean, I know that social media platforms don't like you to use the word violent and all that stuff nowadays, but let's be honest about it. That's what Lowndes football was known for. Being very physical, being a very violent football team, right? I think Byron Slack said it best one time. He says, man, I'm looking for players that don't mind colliding with other players. It's not a contact sport. It's a collision sport. And Wilbur, I think that's what you're talking about. A return to this mentality of physically dominate the other team. And let's be honest, we haven't had that in a while. We haven't had that in probably at least 3 years. Y'all don't read anything into that, but we haven't had that in at least that mindset anyway, at least 3 years. Yeah, Greg Maddox says, get more Thomas Davises. Okay, so this is what Danny said about it. He just replied. He says, we're waiting on one contract to get returned. So that's it. There's one program out there that hadn't returned their contract, and that is holding up. Guys, this is breaking news. That's holding up the release of the football schedule. So as soon as we get that, I'm sure they're going to shoot me a text, send me a press release, that kind of stuff. So we'll get that out there to the Viking Nation Facebook page as soon as we get that. Trainer says, since Slack left. Yeah, you got a good point. I can't disagree. Tim Neesmith, behave yourself. I'm not putting that comment on the screen. We ain't talking about that topic. This hat's not referring to that topic. Right, this is my hat, man. Come on. What's wrong with you? Abby Pearson agrees with Wilbur Pelfrey. She says, that's my kind of football. Yeah, we got it. That we got to return. Speaking of that, a physical defense, not next week, but the following week, the week after spring break, the defensive coordinator, Ashley Anders, defensive coordinator for Lowndes football, is going to be on the program. And we'll ask him some of these questions. Well, this is going to be his second year, although it's a different head coach. It's going to be his second year as the defensive coordinator for Lowndes football. What are his plans? What kind of culture is he trying to instill? That kind of stuff. And obviously, he's going to say all the right things that coaches need to say when they appear on programs like this. But we're looking for, as fans, we're looking for a true commitment to a return to a very physical, violent form of defense, right? And so that's one of the expectations. So I agree with you, Wilbur. That's one of the expectations that I have for Lowndes football as well. Wilbur, Wilbur is on a roll tonight. He says, Randy was a believer in the team that blocks, tackles, and executes, wins the war. Yeah, basically the fundamentals. I mean, sometimes it wasn't flashy football. Oh, shoot, let's be honest with it. A lot of times it wasn't flashy football, but it was very physical brand of football. Those coaches, those players were well coached in the fundamentals of football, squaring up when you make tackles, hitting them in the mouth, being physical every single play. And that was, it permeated every position group. Do you remember the nasties that we used to call them, the Mayflower Moving Company? The nasty, when you described an offensive lineman for Lowndes football, the word nasty usually came to mind. Not that they were not because they broke the rules, but they just played a very physical form of offensive line football. And that's, I think, the mindset you guys are talking about. David Carter says, did you pick the right coach? I think so. David, I think so. Given your last name, I don't know if you're related to Adam Carter. If you are, welcome to the Viking Nation. Listen, we are, as a community, we are excited about Adam Carter being here. He's making all the right moves. He's saying all the right things. He's putting programs and practices into place all at the right time. So I think the new iteration of Lowndes football is definitely headed in the right direction. Now, obviously, the proof is going to be in the pudding, but the expectation that we have for Adam Carter and his program out there is phenomenal. Now, I was told this by a Valdosta fan, because Adam Carter was an assistant at Valdosta High School several years ago when Adam Rodemaker was the head coach. Not Adam, but Alan Rodemaker was the head coach. And a Valdosta fan called me after Adam Carter was hired. Yes, we all have Valdosta fans that are friends. Can we all agree on that? But we started talking about Adam Carter specifically. And so I didn't know much about him other than he was an assistant at Valdosta and was the head coach at Grayson, was the head coach 1 year, I believe, at Creekside. And so I started asking him, he said, tell me about this guy. Well, what's he like? And the first thing this guy told me, he says, no one is going to outwork Adam Carter. And that's what I've seen so far. That is the culture that he's putting into place. And that's permeating down into the mindset of his players. And look, guys, I got to tell you, I'm not just blowing smoke here. I'm really impressed with this guy, because he's not just emphasizing that work ethic, that mentality on the football field, but he's emphasizing that in the classroom as well. And that's what we want, right? We don't want just great football players, but we want smart, great football players that qualifies at the college level academically, that if football is not in their future, that they can become great functioning adults in society, whether it's college or trade school or in the military, whatever. That's the culture that he's building. You may beat me, but you're not going to outwork me. That's the culture that Adam Carter is installing at Lowndes football. And that's what I was told that up front to look for that. And that's what I've seen so far. And I got to admit, I'm a big fan. I'm going to hedge my bets and say I'm waiting for the proof on the field. I've always been a straight shooter with you guys, very as objective as you can get for a homer, if you will. Remember, I told you last week, my fandom, basically, you got homers and you got completely objective folks. I'm somewhere in the middle. So I don't mind telling you straight up what's on my mind. What's on my mind is I'm 95% Adam Carter is the right guy for this position that we need right now. Yeah, we need a guy like Adam Carter right now. But I'm reserving that last 5% of judgment to see what kind of product he puts on the field. I think that we're going to be pleasantly surprised, but we'll just have to wait and see. Isn't that a fair way to assess it? I think so. Ronnie Saw, hey, man, I'm glad to have you back on the program. Ronnie says that Adam is going to be good for Lowndes. Randy was a great, solid coach at Lowndes, and I backed him 100%. A lot of fans were critical of Mac the last few years, but I still say he was one of a kind, and Adam Carter will be just fine. Well said, man. Well said. Don't disagree with anything you just said. One of the things that don't be surprised if you're used to attending the Monday night touchdown club / coaches show that happened during the season. Don't be surprised if that schedule changes, just basically because Adam Carter just he works. If you could describe a workaholic when it comes to football, this guy is a workaholic. So we talked about that in a touchdown club meeting recently, where we're probably going to have to change some things when it comes to the coaches show. So don't be surprised if it doesn't end up happening on Monday. They may have to move some schedule around. Just giving you a heads up. Still going to be on the radio. So that's not going to go away. But the scheduling, they're still trying to figure out. So we'll just have to wait and see how those details work themselves out. So just to recap, as we're closing the show down tonight, because we've been at it for an hour and a half now, hopefully next week we might have a football schedule. We're waiting for that one last contract. We're going to be talking about spring ball, what our expectations, a lot more in detail. So we'll see how that turns out. And Ronnie Saul says, Larry, I love the hat. You need a big plowboy on the front. I might take it to someone, maybe Ron Corbett can help me with that. I don't know if he does a hat like this or if he can put a logo on there. I don't know if I want to ruin this hat with just any type of logo. Maybe I'll get a different hat with a plowboy logo on there. But that's a good suggestion. That's excellent suggestion, Ronnie. So anyway, Coach Trainer says, coaches show broadcast live on the Viking Nation. Well, that's a possibility. But listen, that's probably not going to happen just because, guys, listen, the Viking boys and Marty Rogers, they do an excellent job. That's usually their area of expertise, and I don't want to step on anybody's toes. Listen, if they want me to do that, I'll be more than happy to do that. But that's usually Marty and Matt and AJ Stracer and Bryce. That's their cup of tea. So they already serve that function. I'm not going to go out of my way to try to step on their toes, that kind of stuff. So listen, one of the things that we talked about with Danny Redshaw was the community support, not just fans, but all the different volunteers and organizations that we have in this community that step up to serve some type of role, whether it's talking about me and the Viking Nation or Marty Rogers and the Viking Voice. Other people are instrumental, the Touchdown Club, the Dugout Club, all the various booster clubs. Everybody serves a role, and that can't be done unless we had a great community behind us doing that. And so listen, I like to say, when I'm asked about why do you love Lowndes football so much, or why do you love the Lowndes community so much? Why do you volunteer your time? Why do you talk about Lowndes athletics all the time? You're not from Lowndes County. You're from Berrien County. This is the way that I like to describe that. Some people are born into a family. Some people choose to be part of a family. My wife and I chose to make this our home, this community our home. We purposely chose. We were happy in Berrien, but we purposely chose to be a part of this community. And I have no regrets, because if we weren't, I wouldn't know you guys. And I have a lot of great friends in this community. A lot of people support the show, the work that we've done over the years. And Tim, what man? I was on a roll. I was waxing poetic. I was in my feelings, just sharing my heart with you guys. And you have to listen. This is what. So all my Berrien peeps over. This is not me saying this. Tim Neesmith, Stickman, says, because Berrien State. Come on, man. No, I know Tim. He's kidding around. But that was kind of funny. Really good timing. They say that the best comedy is perfect timing. Right. So that was a really good timing. Now, Greg Maddox, I used to like you until you just posted what you just posted. Come on, man. If you are about Berrien Rebel, you like a sworn enemy of the Cook High Hornets. That's like the Hatfield and McCoys. Greg says, I'm a Cook High Hornet turned Lowndes Viking. See, that's the saving grace right there. Greg Maddox, you and I have that in common. We are outsiders that have adopted this as part of our home, our community. So our common denominator, the thing that binds us, is our love for the Lowndes Vikings, even though you are pesky Cook Hornet. No, I'm just kidding. All right, so Wilbur Pelfrey, great show, LG. Looking forward to this season's show, absolutely. And we return next week on another edition of the Viking Nation Live. Guys, we are out. Until then, may God bless you. Hope you go to church this weekend. And as always, go Vikings. We're out.